Welcome to this Easter Monday edition of the Moriah Nightly News. On location. A lot to cover tonight as we had some time off for the Easter holiday. And our top story is the Iran war, as we have been following that. When we left the air on Wednesday, the president had spoken to the nation, and it was a very brief message, a very brief speech. And in that message, it seemed clear that he listed the objectives for the remainder of the war and has been hinting at the possibility of drawing down the conflict. The two objectives that we could piece together were a total dismantling, if you will, of the Iranian ability to create a nuclear weapon, to develop a nuclear weapon. And the second one, which to me was pretty significant, was the ability to project power outside of Iranian's borders. And how that second one will take shape may be interesting in the coming weeks. Primarily because Iran, of course, projects its power through terror groups and proxy organizations like Hezbollah. And so we'll see perhaps the best ways to target leadership and let the rest kind of scatter. So that should be interesting to see how that plays out. The fallout from the speech was, of course, the Strait of Hormuz, and which of course is the bargaining chip for Iran in this whole mess. Trump has been both in the speech and in the days following taking shots at NATO. This, of course, is not a new development, as this has been pretty much an ongoing thorn in the president's side for the last decade, or an ongoing, perhaps that's not the right choice of language there, but basically an ongoing point of the president's foreign policy is reevaluating NATO. So, Rubio and others have hinted at reevaluation, and this comes as European countries like Italy, Spain, and the United Kingdom told the United States, or have made it clear to the United States, that they were not allowing the U.S. to land planes on their bases, or in some cases were closing airspace to the American military. And because of this, and because of the lack of support or perceived support, the president has said, if you can't help us, we're not going to help you. And many of the president's supporters are pleased, and of course his detractors obviously are not. So this is an ongoing development. Much of this is an ongoing development. I will confess that as a one-man operation, much of these headlines were difficult to follow over the weekend, given the busyness of the holiday. But what I believe will happen is, or what we could see happen, I will put it that way, is what we could see happen is that the language of pulling out of NATO seems a bit too strong, primarily because that would take too much congressional approval. And what seems to be the more likely option, that if the president were to consider the option, would be to pull troops out of Europe and move them elsewhere. There were reports, although we have not been able to confirm them, of tensions with troops in Germany and questions of the role of troops there. That was more, I would not take that as fact, but more of a almost as hearsay at this point in time, given again the busyness of the holiday and just struggling as a one-man team to follow up on that. But it is undoubtedly clear that the president will re-examine. The president and his team will likely re-examine the relationship that the United States has with NATO over the coming months, weeks, and over the next month. Now, I do believe that as these core strategic objectives are reached, and all of the sources that we've looked at seem to confirm that we are on target to meet those strategic objectives, that the president will seek to draw down the war within the next couple of weeks. That's sort of my speculation, particularly because of the fact that there is that concern of gas prices during an election year, not wanting the costs of gasoline to be high during an election year. So that'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Now, the oil, of course, sphere, as we've been discussing on this program, will be interesting to see, because if the United States does pull out without a deal, that would mean that the strait could remain closed, assuming that the Iranian government remains intact and still maintains control of that. The UK did take some actions following Trump's speech on Thursday to look at options to open the strait. However, as of this broadcast, there has not been a definitive military action from the UK to go in there as of this point. Now, also in that region, the headline reached our desk that there is a conflict between neighboring Pakistan and Afghanistan that China has been mediating. And there, of course, had been on the docket a high-stakes meeting between President Xi and President Trump this year. And that has been postponed as of now because of Trump's insistence on Iran and making sure that comes to a close. But that will be a key event later this year on the national scene of how that event plays out, and what will be the fruit of that event, because of the tension in recent years between the United States and China. And that is something that certainly, if you wanted to push my buttons about, you could very well do that. Also, the national headline was the GOP looking to end the partial government shutdown over the Department of Homeland Security funding, which of course has been held up in Congress over the debate over funding ICE, Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement, and the holding up of these agencies remains ongoing. There has not been a deal reached as of this point that has reached my ears, and so that will remain in the news as well. On the state level, the New York State governor race is on this year, and an intriguing article from the Press Republican showed that reported a poll from Siena College, which I happen to be flying the flag tonight, that 45% of New Yorkers find a favorable view of Kathy Hochul, 42% do not. And I would definitely be in that 42% that thinks she is doing a terrible job of this state, or running this state. Her opponent is Bruce Blakeman, is on the GOP side, and the poll found that 64% of voters are unfamiliar with him. And so This would be an uphill battle for the Republicans in New York State. I don't think that's much of a stretch for me to conclude that. And the poll also found that in New York, at least among the constituents polled, that 62% had a negative approval rating of President Trump. And of course, if I were to take a crack at it, they are mostly liberal Republican or liberal Democratic leaning just by being in New York State. Not that they don't poll Republicans, it's just that New York State has always tended to lean that way, and so that's not a fault of the poll by any means. It's just a matter of how New York State politics tends to work, primarily because of New York City. And there has always been that tension between New York City politics and upstate politics, which, quite frankly, in my opinion, upstate New York does not get the attention that it should get in political affairs. And on that note, more locally in state news was concerning the Adirondacks. An article also in the Press Republican last week showed that the Adirondack Land Trust had received 2 donated parcels of land, about 321 acres, close by in the town of Schroon Lake. These preservations or conservation efforts were not as strict as most of the ones that you see going into the quote-unquote forever wild distinction. Some of the land was designated for, I guess, mild to moderate use, and that's probably my interpretation of the article, kind of paraphrasing it, was that there was some level of timber operation and other economic uses for the land, but really the amount of control over this land that we live in up here is ridiculous. And if we're going to have economic revival and renewal, the amount of restriction needs to go. And first and foremost, that includes the abolition of the Adirondack Park Agency and doing away with that. And of course, I'm not calling for the raping and pillaging of the Adirondack Park, but some type of sensible arrangement for the people like us who live here and work here and call it home. Now, interestingly enough, the state comptroller also happened to report last week that there is a decline in tourism in the Adirondack Park, and citing the tariffs and its effect on the tourism coming down from Canada, with a sharp decline in Canadian tourists of about 21%. Now, quite frankly, the economic impact is felt, or it will naturally be felt, but I believe it really shows that we cannot rely on tourism as a dependable and sustainable economic engine. There needs to be more sustainable, high-paying jobs across the board in different sectors. And now, tourism, of course, is economically beneficial. I think that's a provable fact, but it also has its disadvantages, and is shown elsewhere that an economy built on tourism alone is not sustainable over the long run, especially for the people who live and work in an area year round. And that's not just here, that can be in places across the world that are tourist destinations. There needs to be something sustainable for the people long term. And in the local spotlight, there were several headlines that caught our attention. The main story that seemed to be close by was in the healthcare field. The Elizabethtown Community Hospital adopted a new contract for their nurses with union protection, covered by the New York State Nursing Association benefit fund. They will enter that on January 1st of 2027, and so they have believe that that is a very good agreement for them to have that union coverage. And CVPH Medical Center and Alice Hyde and other places around the region were also lobbying for that type of coverage and support as well. The Crown Point Pier closed last week due to damage, and the Ticonderoga, the town of Ticonderoga, of course, close by, is putting more money into the arts and commerce, or into the arts and things of that nature for recreational purposes, and applying for grants of up to $500 that they are giving out. And Slavamo is also giving grants to their and they are currently looking for nonprofits to give grants to. Their key project that they are funding right now is child care and sustainable daycare for the community, for their employees and beyond, in the town of Ticonderoga and the region. So that is significant, and those applications can be sent to the mill via their HR office. And more locally, even more locally, I should say, it's reported that the town of Moriah Chamber of Commerce has a new head person. Ellen Cole is her name, and she has taken the helm of that organization. And former chair of that department, Kathy Sprague, Penelope the Clown, as you might know her better, praised that decision. And she is bringing 35 years of experience in accounting and management to that organization. They have interestingly revamped their storefront in that office to include a space for vendors and crafters to display all of the stuff that they make and produce. And so that is a very good benefit for the community there. And at a very low cost or commission, they will work with you there to be able to display your products. And a little bit of good news tonight to report that the Pleasant Corner Diner, a restaurant in Keysville, recently celebrated 50 years in operation. They had their 50th anniversary yesterday, I believe, would have been the date. The local papers said that it would have been Sunday, and so if my math is correct, or my dates are correct, Easter Sunday would have been the date for that to have occurred. And speaking of Easter, Easter coverage around the area. Easter went off as planned, or was a success around the area. The churches in Moriah had services for all of the days that we had aired messages, and as well as Easter for the Easter Vigil. The Easter Vigil was held at 8 p.m. on Saturday evening at St. Patrick's Church, with Father Joe Giroux presiding, and a very good, solid liturgy there. 9 a.m. saw the Moriah Methodist Church have their Easter service, and the 11 a.m. Mass at St. Patrick's on Easter morning. The encouraging thing about the services in Moriah has been the young people showing interest, especially for the Methodist Church, seeing more people take an interest there. And so that will be a very positive development that we should not only follow in the news, but pray for. And pray that God will move in the hearts of our youth and our people in these days. And so this week coming up is Divine Mercy Sunday for those who are Catholic. And the Methodist Church, I'm not sure if they will observe that, given I know that they do observe some form of a liturgical calendar, but I'm not sure that it's quite, if it follows exactly the same as the Catholic Church. But it is Divine Mercy Sunday in the Catholic Church this Sunday, the second Sunday of Easter, and that is a more recent liturgical feast day, I guess you would say, or solemnity for the Catholic Church. Calling to mind Saint Faustina is where that comes from. She, of course, is a more recent Catholic saint. So do check that out around the area. You want to save the date also for April 23rd at the Old Miners Tavern, as State Senator Dan Steck will be on hand there, and that will be our first major event covering in terms of being a local media presence. I cannot say to what extent that will look like or what that will look like, but I will be there on hand in any case to provide some form of media coverage, or just to press the flesh, as they say, and advocate for the community and our town. And lastly, we are back on the air after Easter Sunday, and if you enjoy these programs and want to support us, the thing that the hope is to be able to pursue that stream once again that was we tested out on YouTube in the opening days here. We're looking at about a $250 upgrade to be able to stream to our own website, and to be able to stream to YouTube and Facebook, and eventually Facebook Live simultaneously with these broadcasts. And it would also give us a reach into all of the major platforms at will, and would allow us the capabilities in one place, in one location, to be able to create the reels, as they're called, or the shorts, to be able to provide that content as well more readily, swiftly, and quickly. If you would like to help with that, that is certainly a possible option on our PayPal link or Patreon, which you can find on our Facebook page anytime you wish. You can also email acalismedia.com. So this is the Moriah Nightly News for April the 6th, 2026. And may God bless you as we move into the Easter season and look to Pentecost, or even greater moves of the Holy Spirit.